Hi, Mary. It's Shane here. I don't know where Julian is actually. Um, but yes, I'd like to welcome you again, actually. Thank you for spending this time, joining us all the way from Alaska. And yes, and again, must visit there during the summer just to see what it looks like. Always hear it's amazing during the summer. But thank you for everyone else. I'm just introducing Mary, who's been involved with Moodle for a long, long time. So definitely knows it inside out and knows it as a tool for different areas. And so very much looking forward to her presentation today. So thank you, Mary, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for staying alert and still involved in the iMoot at this long last period of time. My goodness, we've had so many good presentations. I'm going to stop my webcam. We don't always have good connectivity here in Alaska, and rather than use bandwidth for that, if you don't mind, I'm going to speak from behind the curtain. But you've seen me say hello at this point, and you know that it is a real person. So here we go. I'm going to change that over, and we'll be talking about Moodle as a professional development tool today. You will have the chat space, so if you have questions, I'll periodically try to catch a glimpse at that as well and see, what I can pick up and maybe answer for you. The Moodle presentation that I'm doing is about how we use Moodle to enhance behavior change. That in itself is hardly new, but being able to observe new skills, attitudes, and behaviors take root really remains for me a spectacular show. So in this presentation, the story of doing professional development training right unfolds for a service department at a time of relocation to its company headquarters. And rather than subject staff to what I call the bolus approach, you all know the bolus approach, come in, sit them down for 6 hours, do training, and call it good. This group agreed to let me do a mini series with them. That mini series included live sessions interspersed with online communication and assignments, and amazing, a Moodle. So it was a wonderful thing that they had a manager who saw that if you could do it over time, you might have a stronger impact on those behaviors, attitudes, and skills. And in this case study, I'll review the response of the staff, along with comments on best Moodle practices for affecting change in the workplace. And recommendations began in this case, and I think should always begin with a needs assessment and negotiation phases in that contracting time, continuing through to the final stage of any delivery and evaluation. So this is a slide which shows some online users who are actually smiling and appear engaged in what they're seeing, and I think they are because it is a Moodle. These are members of the Alaska USA has school districts, and this school district is the Anchorage School District. Within that organization, they have an applications training staff in the IT department, and it's sort of unique. Now, the other clients that I've worked with that I'm comparing them with are Alaska Clean Seas. That is a group that stands ready up on the North Slope to prevent and care for oil spills. The Alaska Humanities Forum, which puts on a year-long Leadership Anchorage program for young leaders or emerging leaders in the city. The Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, which is an indigenous people organization in healthcare by which we gather together to train first responders out in the villages. They're called community health aides. Another client is CyberLinks, which is a statewide K-12 homeschool division operated by one of our other schools, the Nenana City School District. And the last client is the state of Alaska government, its Department of Health and Social Services. Now, I tell you that's sort of a self-disclosure to give you a sense of the breadth of the people that I've been working with, but it is the Anchorage School District that has given me the go-ahead to talk about them and tell their story. So if I'm making comparisons or contrasting, I'll probably be a bit vague and not call the others by name if you don't mind, just to honor their privacy and confidentiality. So first, let's talk about what is similar in all of these groups. Well, they're all amalgamations of people that aren't on the same schedule, much like we have in any kind of international distance learning activity. They do not have a central database or a central source that pays the paycheck or anything that ties them together, even within those organizations. So, for example, the Tribal Health Consortium brings together people from all across the state who all belong to their own regions and their own healthcare teams within those regions. So when the consortium does training, it does not have either access to the databases of who those employees are, nor do they have the ability to require or mandate any kind of activity. They also are groups that bring together people from a wide variety of backgrounds, from youth to elders, from those who won't touch a computer, don't understand a computer, to those who are highly motivated and excited about being able to connect across the far reaches and really have more in their life because of it. We have a situation in Alaska with our bandwidth issues that is sort of legendary, and we make jokes every year when the sunspots occur because those sunspots will interrupt our connectivity altogether. So again, I think that's a commonality that we see across the world, but to have it in one location is sort of fascinating. Now, the Anchorage School District in itself, it's an organization that is in one city, that we are all in Anchorage. But during the time of the project, this particular team was situated in remote temporary buildings on the edge of a high school at the far edges of Anchorage. And the people who were working out there were being moved from the temporary buildings into the administrative building. And that was the challenge because the situation when they were out in the forest, essentially, they could dress in their Carhartts, their overalls, and their hiking boots or their snow boots, and they needed to actually to get into their building. Whereas when they came into administration, it was a little bit more formal and a different environment that they were entering. So we have a number of commonalities among those people, but not commonalities among all of the groups that I'm comparing for you today. Now let's see, I'm attempting to, there we go, bring the slide forward. So when the move was scheduled and they knew that they were going to be coming into this building that's inhabited by executives and board of directors and visits by parents and other community stakeholders, the manager looked for some funding for the staff to be well prepared for the elements of change. So whereas that outlying area, they could be extremely informal, she knew that they needed to move to a situation where they could meet with people and be very professional and engaging. So she asked for 4 courses to be taught, and these are listed in your picture on the screen, your image: time management, front desk essentials, training techniques, and professionalism. It's an IT application department, so they would have a help desk. They train teachers and administrators within all of the schools in the entire school district and do numerous other services. But those 2 key ones were the ones that she wanted to be certain that they could dress up and be sought after as knowledgeable resources in using these tools. So when I talked with her, I suggested that we have several face-to-face meetings, that we look at how we could do some blended training. And this was purposeful. One, I wanted to suggest that we have facilitated sessions that incorporated presentation of content and group interaction. And in those meetings, Moodle was offered as a central meeting site both for pre-work, conversations during the live sessions, its role as a central file cabinet and communication hall. Well, we all know that it's just robust in that way. But the other thing that Moodle would do for us, as I said to that manager, was it would give us post-course review, reflection, and ongoing communication to keep this content alive for her staff. We also set it up that she could have access to the Moodle for 90 days afterwards for her staff to complete all the activities and gain a certificate in each of those courses. So we put the incentive there that they would keep coming back and reviewing, and for that effort, they would get something to put in their personnel file showing that they had accomplished learning in a certain area. Now, the last thing that I suggested to her as part of our needs assessment and meeting their needs was that mentoring by the instructor would be offered for the course participants from the pre through the peri to the post, all the way till we closed down the Moodle 90 days after the classes had ended. And that instructor and the students could access it 24/7 to get to resources, to make comments, to post comments, and to provide not only mentoring by the instructor, but to engage all of the individuals in what I call peer coaching. What happened was it went a lot longer than those first 90 days that we suggested that they would use it. So I want to point out that in any training we do, that there are really no shortcuts for time. That when we try to do a fast course with quizzes that are multiple choice or questions that are true, false, the simple things, we can teach certain levels. But do we really engage the students in such a way that they become a support group for each other long after the course has passed? Do we use adult learning principles in such a way that we engage people in learning content that they don't automatically forget as the course ends? I think that Moodle gives us an excellent tool to prevent that. Now you're looking at the front page, the top block of a Moodle course. I always call it the zero block because that's the one that does not have any number in it. And zero block is a term that people sort of stick in their minds. So we say go back to the zero block each time we come into a class, see what's in the forums and things of that sort. Here you'll note that there's a little arrow pointing to one of their pre-facilitated session activities. And in this case, let's see, in this case they were looking to evaluate how they were using their time so that they would do an audit for a week to 10 days and note the time not only on the job but in their personal life. So we gave them this option, and one of the students became so zealous that he revised and improved the spreadsheet-based form. He incorporated graphics and pull-down modules and all sorts of things that I hadn't even thought of. And the nice thing was the other learners, seeing his excitement, increased their commitment to gathering their own data for a baseline. Imagine when you're coming in to teach a class that is going to be changing behaviors, if the students, the learners, had taken a look at their own behavior and knew where their time wasters were or how much of the day or their life was spent, say, in commuting or getting ready for work or just noting where they had all those interruptions at work. Can you imagine how that would give relevance to the rest of the course? And because the instructor could get notification whenever a learner submitted an audit, the administrative time was reduced. This helped to control costs and gave us a way to give quick feedback, which certainly helps overcome distance when you are using a tool that you're not going to run into everybody on a day-to-day basis. So before we even had that first facilitated session and they met the instructor, there was already a relationship built. That altered and I think enhanced the development of a group identity. And because of a group identity being formed early, it nurtured the level of trust early in the course. And the payoff here was that the individuals became peer instructors early in the process. Now, this visual is just a short of a couple of the forums. One on the left is I use two forums in all classes. One is an announcements forum, which are the logistics, changes in dates, assignments, updates, etc. And of course, the other one is labeled for students to be talking about content. And you see a snippet of that on the right-hand side of this screen. I use this visual, though, not to talk about something you already know, but to draw your attention to the security and privacy of conversations behind the Moodle instance of login and username and password, and the course, and maybe even group and groupings within the course. That's an amazing feature. It's often overlooked, and I think we should stress that more because if you have that kind of encapsulation or walls around a particular group, you can work to build trust all the quicker and all the earlier if they know that they're not exposed and sharing things in the learning process that, gosh, some people don't like to appear dumb. And so in the learning process, they hold back and appear smart when if they could bring things out and talk peer to peer or learner instructor, the change could be happening for them in a much more robust way. The sign to me that this was effective was that activity in the forum continued long after the facilitated part of the course was over, because learners would check in to the Moodle to complete their work towards a certificate. They'd see the new things that were coming from the forum. They'd raise questions, share new reflections on personal use of the time management growth. It was just really neat to be able to stay engaged with them and see that sort of activity happening. Now, a couple of the things that are very beneficial in the way we structure our Moodle. I do believe in having a a navigation tool within that zero block. And of course, in 2.0, 2 plus, we have collapsed topics feature, which can help with this. So that, as handy as that is, I think I may end up using something like this label, which is a table, and you can see in that table that there are links to each of the lessons. And so they are exposed only to the zero block plus whichever lesson they have linked on instead of having our wonderful scroll of death that can go on and on and on and on. And I think that use of this helps to not only focus the learner, but keeps from overwhelming them. So in some way, I suspect we're going to continue using this as things go forward. You could also use visuals or images in place of those words, but note how tight this is. We try to make sure the zero block, the top block, is less than a full computer page so that the learners see the first lesson peeping up from just below. You don't see that in my clip, but if we were in the Moodle, you would see lesson one showing. Now, here's an example in which we do use visual images to navigate. It takes more space. But with our groups that, for example, are Native Alaskan healthcare workers, we try to use colors and images that are meaningful to them. And these picture links do have the alternative name tags so that you can see that it's going to part A of the course or part B or whatever when you mouse over those in the live site. This gets closer to the gamification angle that one of our speakers has been talking to us about in other iMoot presentations, and I so loved what I was learning hearing from that. Having said that, I would probably use the visuals only with a Moodle course that has very few topic blocks because, again, of the space, or real estate as we call it, and keeping people focused on something that is delightful in the colors. As you can see in all three of these, we picked up the same shades of green and used graphic design and all that sort of thing. But as people become more sophisticated and our competition is not other training devices, it's those things that people are spending millions of dollars to do fancy websites and such. That changes how we look at sophistication and therefore importance when we go into any of our training. We cannot afford to look second rate. We need to convey to the learners that this content is important, and we do that by graphic design. So in this case, we're using the pictures. You could say that because they are static, it's maybe not as fascinating, but it's also not distracting. There's nothing random. We're not using a bunch of random colors on the page or a zillion typefaces or those animations that I find very annoying after a while. I guess that's a personal bias, but I think that animations are important if you're trying to teach the beating heart, but not showing, say, the bones of the hand. I guess unless we're showing how they work together. Now we also use the certificate, and you see an actual certificate here from one of our learners. He gained that about almost the full 90 days after he completed the course. Think about this. The certificates that we can give through Moodle, those are tangible rewards. And they can be basic, like this one, which comes just from your general Moodle, or you can customize them for your organization. You also see in this visual in the lower right the report page in Moodle. This is valuable for us to be able to go back and see which learners have received the certificate and to assist the manager who wants to keep in charge of that. Now, the certificates, as you know, are programmed. The learner receives them once they have selected activities or amount of time in the course completed. And you know, if quizzes are among the activities, you can set a cutoff of acceptable grades before it will trigger this whole response. You could also say that you're going to measure content engagement by time spent, saying a certain number of minutes or hours before the certificate is triggered, or even a combination. We always build in completing of a course evaluation form as well, and we make that an assignment in order for the learner to access the certificate. In our case, we have been going to the outside for SurveyMonkey for most of our data because we can do so many things with it that we have not been able to do within Moodle with great ease. So let me talk for just a couple of minutes about what we learned in this process. The first big aha was that professional development as a genre of training it requires a team. It's a team sport. And as in patient care, we have patient-centered teams. Here we, I hope, have learner-centered teams that are made up of many, many backgrounds and many disciplines. Our subject matter experts, these content specialists, as you all know, and you probably are waiting for this to arrive too, I'm continually looking for the delivery of my cranium can opener that I could merely slice through the skull and look into the brain because it's about as easy to get SMEs to tell you what they really know as it would be to use that can opener on their skull, if you know what I mean. Of course, our instructional designers, these are the communication specialists. And I hope that they have a sense of art as well as crafting a science in doing that. Again, so that we make the nonverbals speak towards our lesson objectives as much as the words we use there. The instructors, well, I look to instructors to be the training specialists, the ones who know how to weave together the content, the activities, and the people who are going to be sitting in front of that classroom or computer as they go forward to make some sort of change. Too often in professional development, we have subjected people to courses, especially online courses, in which the game becomes how quickly can I get through this and get my certificate and call it good. We've lost here, at least in the experience I've had over the years, we have lost sight of the fact that training is something that takes time and takes reflection. And for adult learners takes a lot of activity to be more than how fast can I get through this and get out of here. So if we have a good instructor who facilitates and engages the learners, uses all media as well as text, I think we're in a much better shape to have an effect on the business where these employees, whichever business these employees are in, taking their ongoing education. To this end, I want to recommend to you the ASTD, that is American Society for Training and Development. It really should be ISTD because they have international people from all over the world and an international conference every year. That being said, ASTD for American Society for Training and Development, They have a certification called the CPLP, short for Certified Professional in Learning and Performance. And you might take a look at that. It looks at adult training primarily, although we do have CPLPs in our schools. And I think of it like what the CPA exam is like for accountants here. Again, the certification that accountants who have that are held in very high esteem for what they are tested to know. And so ASTD CPLP might be beneficial to each of you who are listening today as a goal area for recognition of all areas that we bring together on that team and beyond when we attempt to use Moodle to its full capacity. ASTD also has other programs such as the Master Trainer designation, and that's a lot less encompassing but really valuable to those of us who train, develop instructional materials, promote e-learning and distance delivery, and above all, for those of us who seek to train to result in impact upon organizations. Short way of saying that, ROI, return on investment. Some of us want the training that we are putting together to be so strong that the employees change. And because of that change, the organization is stronger, better, maybe more productive, maybe more profitable, putting out better students, all sorts of things. Oh, and thank you, Trish. I so appreciate seeing the link there. Now, there was a lesson that I alluded to earlier, and that is about time and exposure. As I certainly don't believe that even if we did have that cranium can opener, that we could actually pour the knowledge in and call it good. It takes time and it takes effort and it takes activity for people who are learning something to engage it in their brain that is not forgotten. What do we say? The statistics show that in any presentation of information, that at the end of the presentation, we are lucky that learners recall 10% of what was discussed. 10%. So if you were giving a 4-hour course live or a 4-hour course on Moodle, and only 10% of what you got presented in there was recalled at any point, my goodness, that's limited. That is a waste of so much time and money and effort, and we could do so much better. So I was tickled when the manager said we could do several meetings with the staff for that live facilitation, and that those facilitations would be no more frequent than every couple of days, in some cases maybe once a week over time. Plus, she did promote the idea of completing their pre-work for each of the courses early, and she is still rewarding staff for returning post-session to complete the assignments in order to receive the certificate. So she linked arms with the instructor to make this course last months instead of days or hours. And speaking of certificates again, I just want to mention, that's such an old school term. Today it's called badges, and in any of our online things, we gain badges when we accomplish a game goal or something. But both of them refer to earning a symbol of achievement. And the ones that require a stretch in the learner's behavior, that's the one that's held in highest esteem. So we saw in our training with this ASD group, Anchorage School District group, that a low threshold resulted in a lower opinion of training than a high one. We were guessing that because we set a high one in this, and it included a lot of tasks that were relevant to course objectives and to the workplace issues that they were facing. So they could do assignments that allowed them to talk about what was going on in their work situation and observations, ways that they could change it, and so forth. So, last thing I'll say about that visual is point 2, repeat exposures punctuated by sleep and activity results in greater gain. The neuroscience of learning is just a passion of mine, and I read everything I can get my hands on. And I know that books that are as open to the public as Brain Rules and neuroscience journals on learning are all talking about the need to have that sleep, that rest to the brain, and activity in order to do more than just hear it come in the ear, one ear and out the other, or through the eyes and gone. So be thinking about courses that you might be doing in professional development. Are you building in enough time for it to be laid down in the brain, feed the brain, sleep the brain, exercise the brain, come back and lay down another layer before you call it good? Make sure you've got some of that repeat exposure. We also, of course, had that joy of the 24/7 that Moodle gives, and because of it, people could come in at 3 a.m. if they weren't sleeping or things of that sort. Now, a lesson about quizzes. Quizzes, quizzes, quizzes. I always hear that quizzes are such a big bit of what we do. And I will be saying something here that is probably not going to be received favorably, and that is quizzes are limited in value. Quizzes are limited in value, but they're endless in online course development. We love to be able to set up quizzes, and the quizzes, first, how many people who are developing quizzes have had courses in making the questions effective? Second, do we use the right level of quiz question for what we want to achieve? Bloom's taxonomy came out a million years ago and was the image that in adult learning, as you know, looks at, well, actually it's all learning, kids and adults, that looks at the layers that we have to go through to become an expert. And we start with things like definitions and terminology. We can't know what a chair, how to build a chair or to craft a chair if we don't know the names of the parts, for example, or what it does, or what the principle of a chair is about. We might end up building a skyscraper if we didn't know the difference in the words. So those low level of things where we are naming and describing and understanding basic concepts, those quiz very well with the kind of quiz questions that our computers can grade automatically. That is often for the asynchronous course what we want, because that reduces the need for an instructor and the cost of the course, and people can do it on their own at any time, etc. But I ask you this, does it contribute to the return on the investment of the effort? Is that what we want a person to know, that being the terminology and the basic concepts? Or are we looking to train at the skill of level mastery, critical thinking, ability to make decisions, application of some of these concepts to a way of business, whatever that is in your organization? Activities that require active learning and reflection are effective for the higher learning levels, mastery, wisdom, knowledge, application, but they sure don't work so well in the auto-grading aspect. And Moodle gives us some alternatives if we can disengage our managers from thinking that the quiz is the end-all answer to evaluating how well someone does it. And so things like having those activities, that lessens the limited focus on quizzes as the only way to assess involvement in compliance courses and other forms of corporate training. So is there a bonus? Yeah. The non-quiz options are shown to impact performance on the job. Performance. That to me is the key piece. I want when people finish one of these courses for them to be able to walk into their office and utilize some new knowledge immediately. One other lesson, peer teaching. Whether the course is taught live or in a Moodle course or whatever, so often there is an instructor source, live or encapsulated in a Moodle course, and then there's the learners. So, we call it the sage on the stage. But in Moodle, we have such wonderful tools for engaging the learners to become peer teachers. And if those peer teachers are working together, think of the impact when they have all had the same exposure and can help each other use that material in the long run. So I would say that this lesson to us is that peer teaching is often underutilized. You see in the image a model, and this is Tuckman's model revised. And it comes from the concept of what happens when teams or groups come together, both in the learning environment or in any other kind of team. So there's a cycle of stages that starts at the top here, and it represents the development of cohesion and trust. And time is one factor that is key in developing these characteristics. You can't just dispense cohesion and trust pills and expect it to happen within the first 5 seconds because you did an icebreaker or had your learners build their profiles in Moodle. That doesn't do it. That's just one of the pieces. But problem-oriented activities is another thing that you can use to build those components to create a peer group. When a group has shared focus, targeted activities, common targeted completion dates, and when they've been through all of these stages from forming to storming, when they're not liking some things about each other and they're trying to settle in to see who's going to be the leader and who's not, and they get down to norming, okay, now we're a group that we trust each other and we see the piece that each brings to our shared puzzle, then they get to performing. And when we get there to performing, we get more than just knowledge transfer. Here, ladies and gentlemen, if we can cause that to happen in our professional development through Moodle, we can get a refinement in teamwork, support of shared values, strengthening of shared attitudes, and a much stronger basis for communication that goes far beyond just the course that they have now attended and learned some content in. So, at the end of this, the courses were all over, and we kept the Moodle open for that 90 days after the last course was completed. And you can see in the image here, they're still smiling. So in this time frame, about 6 weeks afterward, I was able to revisit the applications training team at the Anchorage School District. And it was really, really neat. I wish I had been recording the whole thing because the conversation was, so spirited. And both the manager and the staff, everybody had comments on changes that they'd observed in themselves and other team members and the team as a group. And they even commented on a perceived change, a change that they saw in the status of their project resulting from their choice to dress professionally, communicate with respect for others' times, and even the buzz that their ongoing activity in Moodle had caused by way of informal conversations with others outside of their department. Mind you, this Moodle is not part of the Anchorage School District. This was an external one that they were using, and they were so excited about it that their talk about it caused people to look over their shoulder and see what was going on. And in that follow-up session, a couple of the staff laughed about the number of times they referenced concepts from the training or even named the trainer. They're in a staff meeting or a group meeting, and they'd say that the trainer would say, or let's go back to our content and look. So what I saw was that they had many more peer-to-peer conversations. They worked more on projects. And as I mentioned, the dressing professionally and communicating with respect and things, those were outcomes. Those were measurable objectives from 2 of the courses that we went through. We also saw that they improved their teaching on some of the applications that they were helping teachers use. Now, from my viewpoint as a training professional, as I say, I observed changes in both appearance and dress, changes in their nonverbals, the kind of things when you see someone's, you see them acting and moving and smiling. Their nonverbals say that their self-respect, their appreciation of their work team and their workplace culture, that there's been a change there. And I also saw a change in the sophistication with which they were grappling with their projects. So it wasn't just about how they were working with the clients, but in their background work, how were they approaching it? Well, at this 6-month meeting, I'm real tickled to tell you this, several were so aggrieved that their Moodle was due to close that when I offered to leave the classes open for the rest of the summer, their appreciation was unrestrained. I even got a few whoopies. And so, it was really kind of neat that they wanted to get back in and review it and learn it and have it saturate their brain in a way that their behavior is changed forever. So to close, let me show you the model that they developed to redesign business processes, and not only for their own service department, but they are mounting this as a service for the rest of the school district. And this is just an image that's sort of their mind map, version 99, I think they said by the time I got there, that they were going to use this to evaluate every request that came in, every project they did, every business process. And as we talked about it, we went from this two-dimensional model to a three-dimensional model. So if you can picture that as being on top of a box and strings coming down from the top of that box to their service areas like help desk, customer support, live trainings, online trainings, whatever, that they would use this model all the way through. Their excitement about it and what they were able to bring together as a group committed to change and acting in a professional manner was, they just made it really exciting. They just wanted to walk me through it and tell me all about it and everything that had happened and how that occurred from being available in this training to having the resources and the exercises that we did all the way through that changed their way of problem solving. So I've got just another image before we go to question and answer, and that is my own reflection on this whole thing. Because, as I looked at it, thought about the professional development that we had done with all of those groups I'd mentioned at the beginning, and of course I've told you only really about the school district one, but it came to my mind to ask, all right, is it just Moodle? Would any LMS do the job? What does it take to have professional development that has a high return for all the effort we put out? Something that more than gives us a checklist and the ability to say, yep, we did it, we got everybody trained, just because we sat them in front of an instructor or a computer. Because certainly there are other LMSs that have a sound pedagogical basis for their development, but I ask this, how many have the versatility that we have in Moodle? How many have the community of avid developers and users? And, we can't get by without mentioning that open source aura. That is a shared value. That we create things, that we learn, that we train one another. We have our own peer-to-peer setup that comes from our way of approaching handling the content. And even iMoot is a very good example of that. So looking at this illustration, this is Dick and Carey. They came out with this model, I think it was 1978, so it is ancient. And I have taught from this for a long time in teaching instructional designers or managers who are needing to train people within the workplace. I found that it really organized my steps. And I share this with you because some principles hold true whether we're teaching with, a stick and sand, or chalkboard and chalk, or computers and internet. The process for developing and delivering effective professional development courses begins with a needs assessment and negotiation where we can get enough time in there for enough active learning activities for adult learners to do more than read and click, read and click, read and click, and call it good. So this model will take you through those stages. You can Google Dick and Carey and see this in 1,000 different colors and pictures and whatnot. But I think it's a valuable one and something that if we integrate more into our use of Moodle, we can upgrade for ourselves and with ourselves to do an even better job. So with that, I'm going to come back to ask you a couple of questions and see what you might post here as we're talking. First thing I would want to ask, as I'm hoping that you'll have something to share, is when you hear this story, what I'm sharing with you today, how does that bring light to your own Moodle journeys? What are the things that for you, as you were listening, you said, yeah, I've experienced that, or hadn't thought about that before. So let me watch the chat. We could activate the microphone, but the chat with our bandwidth up here might do just as well. Anyone? See, Cheryl is giving us something. So the rest of you, please add a few words. Ah, the extended time. I hope, Cheryl, that that if you are using that now, that we can keep in touch, or if you try it and see how that might do even a better job, all the better. Yeah, brain rules, very cool. There's also brain rules for babies. So if you know any new moms, that's a neat little gift. Yeah, it's a pretty cool one. I think I'm going to bring my webcam back on so that you know I'm really here. And let me see if that actually will work over here, or if we're so low on bandwidth that it won't. I had a couple of other questions that I wanted to share. See, with the course structure, would it be the Dick and Carey one that you're talking about, Teresa? Course structure, the course structure. I'm guessing. You can see I'm kind of scooching down to read what's on the chat. I should probably move that to the top. I'm over at a barbecue for Memorial Day, and I'm in the spare bedroom. My computer is on top of a barrel on top of boxes so that I can actually read it in front of me, and it's a little humorous. So forgive me if it looks like I'm bowing to the computer as I'm talking to you. I'm stepping into developing scenario-based training, and this has supported my sense that we need, yes, 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 oh yes. You can't see the video yet. Okay, well that's good, so you don't see me bowing. Here we come. If Teresa, if you're talking about the Dick and Carey model, Dick like Dick and Jane, D as in dog, I, C as in cat, K, and Carey, cat, A, R as in Robert, E, Edward, Y. That would be pretty awesome to look up. Bing has wonderful, wonderful pages of illustrations people have done of his technique or his flow chart, and Google does too as well. Let's see, hate quizzes with a passion. Oh, Cheryl, I think we're from the same gene pool. I just know we're sisters of the heart here. So yes, I am sad to say, but yeah, I think that quizzes are, they can be used well. You know the terms formative and summative. Quizzes that you ask in the middle are formative, and they give us feedback, and they help train the learner when we have good feedback built into the quizzes. But say, oh, we're going to do this quiz at the end, and that means they're trained. Oh, I have trouble with that. I truly do. They do like the feedback, that's for sure. And Teresa, you're right. They do have their purpose. I'm going to ask you another question too, not because I want to cut off the dialogue that you're sharing with me right now, but I asked you there about how my telling my story brought light to your own Moodle journeys. Here's my next question for you. Do you see weak spots that I might benefit by investigating? When you go through this, are there some things that maybe I should be taking a look at that I haven't? For the fun of it, I'm going to go over to the Q&A screen and see how this looks. So if you don't like this one, we'll go back. But just for the heck of it, that's a little easier for me to read. You don't have to bow to the computer quite so much to read it. Mandatory training. Lesson. I'm trying to be very open-minded to lessons. I think I like book. Lesson I find is a little bit more aggravating to set up, but very effective when done well. And a quiz that they can go take. So my question is, what kind of quiz questions are you asking? Are they fill in the blank, true and false, multiple choice? Or are you having them write some sort of essay, more portfolio kind of activities, letting them upload a video or an audio, using all of the sensory media, multiple choice? You know, again, if you don't know Bloom's taxonomy, Bloom like flowers bloom, uh, go find Bloom's taxonomy. Scribd and some of the other slide shares have a wonderful little Bloom's updated for learning in the electronic age too. Because those questions, if you some questions will allow you to have those lower levels of learning that are basic before we can get to the advanced learning of skills, attitudes, and behaviors that will be used in any kind of workplace. Can you imagine a quiz? Let's say you're teaching CPR for rescue, and saying with just a multiple choice that they know how to perform CPR. They'll know the names of things. They'll know what tools to use. But we have to see a live demonstration to know that the technique is going to be effective on the human body. And that's what I mean. We need more things that will allow people to show us. Maybe video and upload it. Maybe, oh, I don't know. There's so many different ways. I could get lost in that discussion. Mm-hmm. Stephen, I would agree that books are good only if you're providing information. I said what I said because I see so many programs anymore that are only about content delivery. And I like to have a good resource that I can print off and take with me. Frankly, I'd love to see Moodle have one that we just called a job aid. And like a little tip sheet, it would be something that wasn't a full 8.5 by 11, maybe a little nice booklet that had good feel to it, that people wanted to print it and have it near their computer with just facts after a training so that they remember, oh, I don't know, whatever those basic parts are. But I still want reflection and activity. Have the activities first and provide a link to the resources. Awesome. Yeah, that's it. That's wonderful. Love that. Yes, Cheryl, I agree. Turn it on its head. Have you heard, Stephen, of the phrase the flipped classroom? I just think that is so cool. I tried that with a university course I was teaching this last semester, and the students, I think by the end of it, they decided I had really cheated them, that they worked harder than if I had been delivering lectures in the classroom. But I would have them do all of their PowerPoints and such outside of class, and we would have work sessions when we came together. And one did complain that she spent more time in this class than she thought she had to. Oh well. Kathy Moore's blog. Do you have a link, Stephen? I'd love to take a look at that. She may be a sister of the heart, too. And while he's getting that, the last question I wanted to pose for you would be, could you point out how the success of the case that I've described to you tonight, how it might be parlayed to many successes with many professional development environments? In other words, how can we take a situation that had such a wonderful outcome that the students wanted to continue having access and learning from it? How can we use that over and over again and use that as a successful paradigm? Is it that we go back to the flow chart from Dick and Carey and create something that says, in order to do more than just make a list of who's been sitting in this class versus have a list of those who can do a certain procedure or make a certain decision? I don't know. What do you think? How can we do this over and over again? Thank you, Stephen. I am going to check that out. Oh, Teresa, I know. I teach at university. I know there's a place and a time for those kinds of quizzes. Please don't think that I'm slamming them, but I'm saying that an understanding of Bloom, or even better, Bloom and Kraftwall, he got somebody else working on it a while later who came up with a model for changing behaviors, not just knowledge based, cognitive knowledge. Uh, I've become such a devotee of that over the years, and thinking about, if I really want a behavior to change, how would I assess it changing? And I can't do it with a static question. I need to see something that talks about reflection, something that shows what's happening in a process. It's the same philosophy, I think, that has given rise to the importance of portfolio development. Do they just know it, or can they use it? Awesome. Oh, I can't wait to read that one. Is that about building of the community? Interesting thought. Yeah, really neat. You guys are a good group. I'm so glad you chose to come tonight. Each one of these presentations is, to me, so dictated by the people that show up, and their willingness to participate in it. It's otherwise a very lonely venture, as you well know, to sit, talk, talk to your computer. And I just want to thank you for caring enough to keep the comments flowing here. Julian, do I hear you lurking there? Huh. Maybe not. I think he's come and gone. Yes. Oh, Stephen, at ASTD 2 years ago, I took a course, and it was something on developing e-learning, and he passed out little lapel pins that are the international no sign, and it says no boring e-learning, and I wear that. I wear that a lot. Uh, I'm just waiting for someone to ask me about it, but we all need those, don't we? So I know we've been going now for about an hour, and that some of you may actually want a break or some other things. I'm not asking that we cut off the dialogue, but if those of you who do need to move on to other things, do so. Know that that's absolutely okay, and not taken in any negative fashion. There is a discussion log or icon on the session site, so you could utilize that. I have a few resources up there, and you can access the PowerPoint set if you wish. And I think if you download that, you can play it back with all my speaker notes. So if you want some of the content that we were going through that I gave to you verbally, just check it out. Do it in Presenter's View, and you can see all of that as well. So forever what it's worth, I just thank you for being part of the audience tonight, and I hope that you'll keep the dialogue going. Um, Stay in touch, not only through iMoot, but through LinkedIn or any of these other resources that, you can find me in a lot of different places. Just even in this presentation, you'll see that my Yahoo address is on that last slide, and you are welcome to do so. I'd be happy to bring you into the Alaska Distance Learning Network Moodle. Right now, the robust one is a 1.9, but I've been feverishly working on a 2.2, and tomorrow morning I have to start training people on 2.2. So would you wish me luck about 9 o'clock Alaska time? I'm hoping that I've got 4 wonderfully enthused new learners in another corporate setting who really want to learn how to do this in a way that is more than just a list that people went through a class, but actually has a return on the investment for the time and effort everyone puts into going through a training. So wish me luck.
Mary, it's Meg from the iMoot team here, just coming in for Julian, who's ducked off to get some lunch finally. On behalf of the iMoot team, I'd like to thank you for looking at those comments. I said I've come in late, but looking at the comments everyone's left, it looks like it's been a very inspiring presentation, so I'll have to catch up later on the website and have a look at what you've had to say. So thank you very much for that.
And thank you. The support has been wonderful. This year was so
We also will
calm and
probably have to wind it up
easy.
here so we
I
can
had
get on to the... Sorry, keep going.
I was just saying that this is my third year to be part of iMoot as a presenter, and this year has been so reliable and easy that I have not had as much nervousness. And just thank you and thank the team, and of course add to the thanks to Julian for being sort of the lightning rod to make this all happen. Thank you.
Will do it. It certainly is his pride and joy, I think. But yes, we've certainly had a very good year this year. No major dramas, thankfully. So
Terrific.
finally got there. All right, and
Well,
yeah,
with
as
that,
Mary said, certainly go visit the forums, go look at all the discussions going, keep it going, keep sharing, keep talking about it. It's been great. Thank you very much.
so with that, I think we'll say so long for the evening. Thank you, everyone. And as we finish out, I'll look for you in comments in other places in this iMoot. Thank you.